Tenants froze in their beds. The sound drifted through the hallways, soft at first, like a whisper carried by the wind. Some thought it was a child outside selling bananas late into the night, but as the voice grew louder and clearer, it became evident that the sound was coming from inside the house. A woman, Adora, living in apartment 3, sat up in fear. "Did you hear that?" she nudged her husband. "Go back to sleep," he grumbled, half asleep. But Adora could not sleep because the sound was now right outside their bedroom door. A fence knocking. "Banana!" She woke up screaming, her heart breaking anew each morning. Now, the banana girl in Harvar City, where the streets are always alive with the sound of commerce, walked barefoot on the hot, dusty roads. Her name was Zen, a child of only 8, yet she carried the weight of a family on her small shoulders. Her language was different from that of other children. While many her age were in school learning to read and write, En's classroom was the open market, and her lessons were survival. Every morning, before the first rays of sunlight touched the earth, she was already awake in a small, single-room apartment with cracked walls and a leaking roof. Her mother, Mama En, carefully peeled ripe bananas and packed them neatly in a tray. "Hurry up," her mother's tired voice called out. En was already tying the faded wrapper around her tiny waist. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and picked up the tray, balancing it carefully on her head. Her little brother, Sim, barely 5 years old, sat on a mat in the corner watching her. His stomach growled, but he said nothing. He had learned that complaints only brought more sadness. En smiled and stepped over to rub his head. "Chim, I will bring back something sweet for you today," she promised. The boy nodded eagerly. He trusted her as he always did. With one last look at her mother, who was already preparing to leave for the market where she sold granites, and stepped into the world once again. That world was one of endless movement. Traders shouted their prices. Okada riders weaved dangerously through narrow roads, and the air was filled with the scent of roasted plain mixed with exhaust fumes. But En knew every corner of the streets. She had walked them since she was old enough to talk. With her tray balanced perfectly, she began her usual chant, her voice carrying through the air, "Buy banana!" It was a call she had mastered over time, loud enough to grab attention, sweet enough to make people stop. She walked from street to street, dodging careless drivers, weaving through crowds, and smiling at familiar faces. Some people pitied her, a girl so young, working so hard, while others barely noticed her, just another child of poverty lost in the sea of struggle. But En never complained. She was used to the long hours, the heat, the echoing footsteps. She had accepted that this was her life, until that day, the day everything changed, the day she crossed paths with Odiu. It was late afternoon, and En had not made enough sales. The store had begun its low descent, casting long shadows on the streets. She was about to take the shortcut home when she passed by a half-built house, an uncompleted building standing tall and lonely in an empty plot of land. Docks were stacked in piles, bags of cement lay scattered on the ground, and wooden planks were strewn about. Something about it felt wrong. The air around it was too quiet, as if the place held its breath, waiting, but En did not pay much attention. She lifted her voice again, calling out her sales chant, "Buy banana, banana!" That was when she heard a man's voice. She froze for a moment, looking toward the building. A man stood in the shadows, half hidden by the unfinished walls. He was dressed well in a crisp white shirt and dark trousers, but there was something unsettling in his posture. He waved at her, gesturing for her to come closer. "Come here, my pick. I want to buy banana." And hesitated. Something inside her screamed to turn away. She took a step back, but then she thought of her brother CH, who was hungry and Mama needed money. Ignoring the warning that burned in her chest, En stepped forward. Her small feet crossed the threshold into the shadows of the uncompleted building. The tray on her head wobbled slightly, but she quickly steadied it. "How many you want to buy?" she asked, forcing a polite smile. The man's lips curled into something that was not quite a smile, and then the world went dark. The moment En stepped into the unfinished building, the world outside seemed to disappear. The street noises, the honking of cars, the distant chatter of traders, all faded into silence. A strange coldness settled in the air, and the smell of damp cement and dust filled her nose. She shifted uncomfortably, gripping the tray on her head. "How many you want to buy?" she asked again, hoping to make herself quickly leave. The man, Gio, did not answer immediately. He stood still, watching her with an unsettling expression, his eyes calculating. Then he took slow steps forward, closing the space between them. "Banana go sweet?" he finally asked, his voice smooth, too smooth. Then he forced a smile, though something in her gut told her to turn and run. An instinct screamed at her, but she pushed it aside. She had been selling bananas for years. She had met all kinds of customers. Some kind, some rude, some simply strange. Perhaps he was just another strange one. "Yes," she replied politely. "My banana, sweet." Well, how many you go by?" Old Gio's lips twisted into something resembling a smile, but not quite. "I go by everything," he said. N's eyes widened in surprise. Everything. That had never happened before. Most people bought 2, maybe 3 bananas at most. "You go by everything?" she repeated, a hint of disbelief in her voice. He nodded. "Yes, but first," dropping for grand, "I go count the money." Something inside her hesitated, but money was money. She carefully lowered the tray from her head, setting it on the dusty floor. And that was when she felt it, a shift in the air, a sudden tension, as if the world around her had just changed. Shortly before she could react, a heavy hand clamped over her mouth. Her scream was swallowed by the silence. Odio dragged her deeper into the building. His grip was firm and unrelenting. N kicked and thrashed, but she was too small to fight against the strength of a grown man. Tears welled from her white, terrified eyes as she struggled. She tried to bite his hand, but he only tightened his grip. No one could hear her. No one would save her. In the dimness of the building, another figure appeared, a dark-robed man with a face as cold as stone. His beaded necklace rattled as he stepped forward, his eyes holding no mercy, no humanity. "She be the right one?" he asked. Odie, breathing heavily, nodded. "She be the innocent blood we need." The priest's lips stretched into a grim smile. "Good, bring her," and shook her head violently, her muffled cries growing desperate. She did not understand everything they were saying, but she knew one thing. She was about to die. The earth takes the blood. The ground had already been prepared. A deep pit had been dug in the center of the building's foundation. It was meant to be filled with cement, but tonight it was to be filled with something else. Her blood spilled into the earth, soaking into the foundation of the house that would soon rise above it. The Juju priest chanted, "Oh, Gio," as his heart pounded with a mix of fear and excitement. "It is done," the priest said at last, and just like that, the sacrifice was complete. The hole was covered, the foundation was laid, and the house began to rise. But not all spirits rest easily. The house, built months later, stood tall and proud, gleaming under the sun. Old Gio boasted about it to anyone who would listen. "My house will stand forever. Nothing will ever bring them down." Tenants rushed to rent it. Families moved in, filling the rooms with life, with laughter, with dreams. But deep beneath the foundation, something stirred, a presence, a whisper, a restless soul. And soon the first signs appeared. At exactly 1 a.m., the whispers began, soft at first like the rustling of leaves, then louder, more urgent, until on a quiet night, a tenant woke up in terror to a chilling, familiar sound. By banana, banana, the walls trembled, the air turned ice cold. The house, once a place of promise, had become something else entirely. And then N was not done, not yet. Then N disappeared. The world did not stop moving. The sun still rose over the water. Traders still opened their stalls. Children still played in the streets. But for one woman, the world had ended. Mama N, a widow, a mother, a woman who had already lost too much, waited by the door that evening, expecting to hear the familiar voice of her daughter calling from the streets. "Mama." That was how it always happened. That was a routine. But that evening, silence came instead, and Mama N's heart grew cold. At first, she tried to stay calm. Maybe her daughter had delayed for market. Maybe she had taken another road. But as the minutes turned to hours, a deep, Twisting fear settled in her chest. She clutched her wrapper tightly around her waist. "And then where are you?" she called, her voice raw with worry. She asked the women sitting outside their compound, the Okada riders at the junction, the traders locking up their shops. "Have you seen my child?" Every answer was the same. "No, we never see her today." Mama N felt her knees go weak. Her daughter, her precious N, was missing. That night, Mama N did not sleep. She walked the streets, knocking on doors, calling out to strangers. She went to every shop, every roadside vendor, every corner where N might pass with a tray of bananas. But no one had seen her. By morning, her voice was hoarse and her feet bruised, but still she dashed to the market, where she bought bananas. She spoke to traders, drivers, even beggars sitting by the roadside. Nothing. It was as if her daughter had vanished into thin air. Then she went to the police. When she arrived at the station, her clothes were soaked in sweat, her eyes red from crying. "Officer, I beg you, help me. My child will never come back." The officer looked at her lazily while chewing a stick of gum. "How old is she?" he asked. "She is 12, Mama N replied, her voice shaking. The officer clicked his tongue and leaned back in his chair. "Madam, if she is gone, then so be it. Children run away every day. If she comes back, she comes back." She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "I beg you, help me. She never ran before. They say, by Banana for Road, she won't disappear just like that." The officer waved his hand dismissively. "Madam, if she does come back after 3 days, come back and we'll write a report." 3 days. Mama N felt the ground shift beneath her. Her daughter was missing, and this man did not care. Her cries, her pain meant nothing. Slowly, she rose to her feet, wiping her face with the edge of her wrapper. "If the police will not help me, I will find N myself." And so her search continued. For weeks she dashed. She stopped eating. She stopped sleeping. She knocked on every door, questioned every face. She went to churches asking pastors to pray for her. She visited native doctors, begging them to help her find where her daughter was. Some told her N was still alive. Some said she was dead. Some advised her to forget. But a mother does not forget. Every night, she dreamed of N's voice calling her from somewhere far away. "Mama, Mama, I won't come home." She woke up screaming, her heart breaking anew each morning. She searched until her body could no longer move, until one day she collapsed by the roadside, her strength completely gone. She had no more tears to cry, and finally, in her weakest moment, she accepted the truth and was never coming back. Her daughter was gone, and there was nothing left to do but mourn. As the months passed, the world moved on. The house where N had been buried became a residence for tenants. Mama N sat outside her small house, staring at the road where her daughter once walked every day. She waited every day. She listened every day. She hoped every day. But it never came home. Then one night in the stillness of her room, she heard it, a faraway voice. "By Banana, Banana!" Her eyes flew open. She sat up, her heart pounding. It was impossible. She rushed outside, looking down the street, searching. But there was no one there, only the whisper of the wind, the distant glow of a streetlight and an empty road. Yet deep inside her soul, she knew her daughter's spirit had not found rest, and somewhere in our area, a storm was coming. The house stood tall, its fresh paint gleaming under the sun. To an outsider, it was a symbol of success, a duplex built for prosperity. But deep beneath its foundation, in the cold embrace of the earth, N did not sleep. Her blood had mixed with the soil. Her cries had been swallowed by the concrete. Her body had been forgotten, but her spirit remembered. And now, she was ready to be heard. It was a joyful occasion when the first tenants arrived. Families with children, newlyweds, hard-working traders looking for a fresh start. The building had 6 apartments, each with spacious rooms, polished floors, and wide windows that welcomed the breeze. Old Gio, pleased with himself, collected rent from each family, laughing as the money piled up in his hands. "This house will give me wealth forever," he boasted to his friends. He had no idea what was coming. At first, Everything seemed normal. The tenants settled in, arranging their furniture, sweeping their balconies, cooking their evening meals. The house was filled with the sounds of life. Children playing, mothers gossiping, fathers returning home from work. But on the third night, something changed. The air in the house grew heavy, as if an unseen force pressed against the walls. Then, at exactly 1 a.m., the silence shattered. A small, distant voice spoke. "Buy banana!" A tenant froze in bed. The sound drifted through the hallways, soft at first like a whisper carried by the wind. Some thought it was a child outside selling bananas late into the night, but as the voice grew louder and clearer, it became evident that the sound was coming from inside the house. A woman, Adora, living in apartment 3, sat up in fear. "Did you hear that?" She nudged her husband. "Go back to sleep," he grumbled, half asleep. But Dora could not sleep because the sound was now right outside their bedroom door, a fence knocking. "Banana!" Adora's blood ran cold. She gripped her husband's arm. "Wake up." But as soon as he opened his eyes, the knocking stopped. The air was too still. Adora held her breath, listening. Nothing. Only silence. Shaking her head, she whispered, "Maybe I imagined it, but deep inside—" She knew the truth. Something was not right with this house. As the days passed, strange things began to happen. Tenants lost their jobs without reason. Money mysteriously disappeared from wallets, and children fell sick with illnesses that had no cure. Food rotted overnight, even in the fridge. One by one, the tenants began to suffer. Even the strongest men, the wealthiest traders, the most devoted women, they all felt the weight of something unnatural pressing down on them. Every night, at exactly 1 a.m., the voice returned, "Buy banana, banana!" Too tired to ignore it, some prayed against it. Some refused to believe it, but the voice never stopped. Then came the sightings. One tenant saw her on a cold evening. A businessman who had just moved into the duplex was counting his money in his bedroom. He had made good sales that day and planned to deposit the cash in the bank the next morning. He smiled to himself, stacking the Naira notes carefully on his bedside table. But just as he turned off his lamp to sleep, something fell off. The air around him turned unnaturally cold. Then, out of nowhere, a small, shadowy figure appeared at the front of his bed. His breath caught in his throat. His body froze. The figure stepped closer, and then he saw her, a little girl. Her eyes were hollow, her face pale and lifeless. Her small hands clutched a tray of bananas. But the bananas were blackened, rotten, dripping with something thick and dark. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The girl's lips moved, but her voice was distant, echoing as if from another world. "You want my banana?" His body broke free from its frozen state. He scrambled out of bed, knocking over his money as he lunged to the door. But just as he reached for the handle, a strong, icy grip closed around his ankle. He looked down. The girl was holding him, her fingers tightening into a chilling smile. "Give me my money!" The room plunged into darkness. The next morning, he packed his bags and left. He did not tell anyone what he had seen. He did not dare mention the house. A residence that once promised comfort and prosperity had become a place of suffering. The echoes of laughter that once filled the rooms had long been replaced with cries of despair. The tenant who had entered the house with hope now lived in fear, because N was awake, and she was angry. By now, everyone in the building had experienced something unnatural. Objects moved on their own. Shadows flickered where no one stood. Unseen hands touched people in their sleep. But the worst part was a voice. Every night, at exactly 1 a.m., it returned, "Buy banana, banana!" The whispers echoed through the house, creeping into every room, calling around the ears of every tenant. Some tried to ignore it. Some wept in fear. Some prayed for money to come. But the voice never stopped. Then the operations began. One tenant, someone who had always been a skeptic, became a believer. He had just returned from work, exhausted. He dropped his bag, loosened his tie, and collapsed onto his bed. Within minutes, he was fast asleep. Then a noise, soft at first, a gentle rustling like footsteps on the tiles, grew louder. A knock came, soft at first, then louder, His eyes fluttered open, his heart pounding. "Who'll be that?" he muttered, his voice groggy. No response came. Then the door creaked open slowly, painfully, and in the dim light of his room, he saw her, a small girl standing in the doorway, her tray of bananas balanced on her head. Her face was shadowed, but her eyes were hollow and empty, staring straight at him. Then she spoke. "You want my banana?" A shiver ran down his spine. "Who you be?" he whispered. She stepped closer. Her feet did not touch the ground. "You go," she said, her voice now sharp and demanding. He tried to move, but his body was frozen, his chest constricted. Then the tray slipped from her head. The bananas hit the ground with a sickening splat. They were rotting black, crawling with maggots, and from beneath them, blood pooled across the floor. He screamed, shattering the night. The next morning, he packed his bags. He didn't care about his rent or his belongings. He just needed to leave. But before he left, he told someone about it. A man he trusted, his pastor at Sunday service. Later that day, a tenant sat at the back of the church, his mind restless and tormented. After the service, he approached Pastor Chinu, the man of God who had guided him for years. "Pastor, I beg, I need to talk to you." There was something in his eyes that made the pastor pause, a deep fear born of something unnatural. "What is it, my son?" the pastor asked. The man took a deep breath and told him everything. The whispers, the shadows, the sightings, and finally the girl. Pastor Chinu listened in silence, his fear unreadable. When the man finished, the pastor closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "The spirit of the innocent is crying for justice," he murmured. Then his eyes snapped open. "Take me to this house." That evening, the pastor arrived at the building. The moment he stepped in, he felt it, a presence, a spirit trapped in suffering for too long. He walked through the house, praying softly, letting the Holy Spirit guide him. Then he stopped. His eyes fell on the foundation of the building, and a deep sadness filled his chest. "She is here," he whispered. A tenant stared at him in confusion. "Who?" the pastor asked gravely. "A child was buried beneath this house. Her soul is not at rest." A collective gasp arose from the other tenants gathered to listen. Then the pastor raised his hand and declared, "This house carries a curse. Whoever built it shed innocent blood. Until justice is done, no one will know peace here." Silence fell over the group. One by one, the tenants began to pack their things. Nobody wanted to stay in a house of death. By the next morning, the building was empty. It had become a house abandoned by the living, yet still occupied by the dead. And somewhere across town in his grand duplex, old Gio slept peacefully, unaware that his time was running out and was coming for him, and she would not stop until justice was served. The once lively duplex that old Gio had built for his tenants now stood empty and lifeless. Its windows once polished and bright now staring like hollow eyes. Its corridors once filled with laughter and footsteps now echoing only with whispers of the past. The house had been abandoned, left to decay. But the curse was not done. For while the tenant had fled, N's revenge was just beginning. And now she was coming for the one who had stolen her life. She was coming for Odiu. Old Gio sat in his grand duplex, far from the house he had built with blood and betrayal. Life was good for him. The tenants may have left, but his wealth remained. He had new business deals, new properties, new connections. He had convinced himself that the rumors about the house were nothing but gossip from weak-minded people who feared too much for this country, he often said, laughing with his friends. But in the dead of night, when all was silent, he was not laughing, because that was when it began. It started small, a soft knock on the window fence, almost gentle. Old Gio ignored it. Then came a whisper, "By banana, banana." Old Gio froze. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone to check the time. 1 a.m. His chest tightened. "I be a big man," he muttered under his breath, trying to shake off the creeping presence. "Ghost, do not disturb me." But the next night, it got worse. Old Gio woke up gasping for air, his body drenched in sweat. His room was pitch black. Yet something felt wrong. The air was thick and heavy, suffocating. Then a shadow moved in the corner. He turned his head slowly, and there, standing by the door, was a small figure. A girl. Her face was hidden in the darkness, but he knew who she was. His breath caught in his throat as the figure stepped forward. Her feet did not touch the ground. Her hands clutched a tray of black, rotten bananas. And then she spoke. "You want my banana?" Old Gio's body went stiff, his mouth open, but no sound came out. The girl's head tilted aside, her voice soft and almost mocking. "You go." A gust of air rushed through the room, knocking over his bedside lamp. Old Gio longed for the light and switched it on, but before he could reach it, the entire room shook. The windows rattled, the walls groaned. Then the girl screamed, her voice piercing through the room, shaking the very foundation of the house. Old Gio fell to his knees, his ears ringing, his vision blurring, and then everything went silent. When he opened his eyes, the girl was gone. On the floor, his money lay scattered, covered in dark stains, while the faint sound of laughter echoed in the distance. That night, old Gio's life fell apart. His business crumbled. Deals that had been steady suddenly collapsed. His bank accounts drained. Money vanished without explanation. His health declined. Doctors found nothing wrong, yet he grew weaker each day. His friends abandoned him, sensing the darkness that now surrounded him. Every night, the haunting grew worse. Every night, she returned. Every night, she demanded, "You go pay." Until one night, he could take it no more. It was raining heavily, the kind of storm that made even the strongest men uneasy. Odiu locked himself in his bedroom, refusing to sleep. He had prayed, begged, and tried everything, but nothing stopped her. As the clock struck 1 a.m., he held his breath for the first time in weeks. There was silence, no knocks, no whispers, no shadows. Old Gio exhaled shakily, relieved. "It don't end," he whispered. Then a voice from behind him. "You want my banana?" His body turned cold. Slowly, with trembling hands, he turned around, and there she was. And her eyes black, hollow, endless. Her mouth twisted into a wide, haunting smile, the tray on her head empty. Then she stepped forward. "Give me my money!" Odiu screamed. He tried to run, but his legs failed him. He tried to fight, but his body was too weak. Then her cold hands touched his chest, and in that moment he felt everything. Every tear she had shed, every plea she had made, every moment of fear, pain, and betrayal. It consumed him. His eyes rolled back. His body collapsed to the ground, and his last breath escaped his lips. As he lay lifeless, the air in the room grew still. The storm outside subsided, and in the darkness, En smiled. Her revenge was complete. Old Gio was dead, but the story was far from over. His lifeless body was found the next morning by a neighbor, lying on the cold floor of his mansion, his eyes wide open in pure terror. There were no wounds, no signs of struggle, but his hands were clenched so tightly that his fingernails dug deep into his palms. Beside him, on the floor, lay a single rotten banana. The news spread like wildfire. Some said, "Don't die, then the spirits will kill it." Others claimed he offended. But those who knew the real story, the tenants, the pastor, the ones who had suffered inside his cursed house, did not need to guess. They knew Anne had taken her revenge, and her spirit was still not done with Odiu. With old Gio dead, his properties were abandoned. His mansion remained empty, collecting dust and decay. But the house he had built for his tenants, the house where innocent blood had been spilled, became something far worse. It became a place of fear, a place that no one in our city dared enter. The landlord tried to sell it, but no buyer ever agreed. Even when the price was dropped to almost nothing, no one wanted it. The whispers, the echoes, the footsteps of the dead filled the house, and every night, at exactly 1 a.m., the voice returned, "Buy banana, banana." At first, brave people tried to test the stories. Men would stand outside the house at midnight, daring each other to stay until morning, but none ever did. The moment the voice began, the bravest among them fled, without looking back. Soon, no one dared go near it. It became a ghost house, a place where only spirits dwell, forever cursed. As the years passed, the story of N became a legend. Mothers warned their children not to walk alone at night, lest they hear the voice of the banana girl calling to them. Elders shook their heads, whispering about the greed of men like old Gio and how the blood of the innocent never stays silent. Some claimed that if you walked past the house on a quiet night, you would see her, a small girl standing in the darkness, holding a tray of bananas that never rotted, her face hidden in the shadows, her voice soft but chilling. "You want my banana?" No one ever answered. No one ever stayed to see what happened next. One truth was clear. N's ghost would never leave the house. Yet the curse remained. Years later, in an attempt to erase the past, the government decided to demolish the house. Bulldozers, hammers, and strong men were brought in, ready to tear down its walls. But strange things began to happen. Machines broke down without reason. Workers fell sick suddenly and had to be taken away. Tools disappeared overnight. Every attempt to destroy the building failed, until finally the work was halted. "We don't go for it," they said. "This house is not ordinary." And so the building remained, a ghostly structure in the middle of a bustling city. A reminder of the girl who had been buried beneath its foundation, a warning to all who would trade innocence for greed. Though the walls cracked and crumbled with time, nature began to reclaim the land. One thing never changed. At exactly 1 a.m., if you dare to listen, you will still hear it, soft at first, then louder. By banana, banana. Those who heard it never stayed long enough to learn what happened next, for in the end one truth remained. Greed and injustice never go unpunished, as the truth always finds a way to surface. The spirit of the wrong will seek justice, even from beyond the grave. In the end, no evil deed remains hidden forever. Please consider subscribing to our channel if you have yet to do so. Like and share this video, and until we meet on our next story, bye.